Welcome to Learn Python for Automation series episode 5. So till now we had discussed in our previous sessions on variables, data types, operators, conditions and the loops. So today we'll learn more about function. Okay? So what's function? Let me explain in simple way. So we'll just take one simple real-time example. Imagine we are preparing a tea. So if I wanted to explain the steps. So I have to boil the water, I have to add a tea powder, then add milk and then sugar, right? So instead of writing these types, what we are trying to do, if we wanted to make it in a kind of a one way that I wanted to form is we'll call it as a recipe, right? So that recipe is called a function, right? So we can explain the function as it's a block of reusable code that performs a specific task, right? So let me write a simple Python function, how exactly we can try to define. So here always we are going to start with the define keyword. I'm going to write a simple function called as the welcome. So always function should be uh, ended with a parenthesis. So here I'm going to write, and indentation is also very important. I'm going to write a statement here. Welcome to Python session. So here, this is how I'm going to write a function. So once we write a function, it's always recommended to call this function. So without calling the function, it's not going to make any sense. So how to call a function? So I can just call the name of the function that I had defined. So let me save it and let me run this program. So here it should print as we are calling welcome. So it has to print welcome to Python session. So here we can see it's printing welcome to Python session, right? So here, let me take another example. When exactly we have to write this Python function. So whenever we'll be seeing a repeated task that we wanted to perform. So at that time, it is recommended to use the Python function. So we'll take a simple example for the question, why functions? So in automation, so we have to write so many times we have to repeat the test steps which I used to do. So I have to say I have to open the browser and then I have to log in. So if I'm having 10 different scripts, so I have to write these steps 10 times. Okay. Instead of repeating this, I can create a function called def login. Okay. So here in the login function, I can write down these steps as first open browser and then I have to print login. So after login, I can just call this function. So here I can call this function any number of times that I wanted to log into this particular application. So let me run this code. So here you can see open browser login, open browser login. So three times it is calling three times. So these are the steps which I can see, which I have written first, and then we can see this is a these two whichever I'm seeing, this is from the function call. So in that way, when I wanted to use this function means, so basically main advantage of the function, if you wanted to summarize, whenever I wanted to do the code reusability, and it is also easy to maintain. You can see all the same steps that I wanted to do at once, I can maintain it as a one function. So to maintaining also it's very easy and less code. So here, if I have to write it instead of writing this 10 times, so I just have to reduce the 10 steps call just by using one line of a code, right? So in that way, it will makes us less code and better readability also. This is the main advantage of the functions using in a Python code. me add it here. Now, so when we are writing the function, so we have to remember simple rules that we have to follow. So first, if I have to write a function name, so you should always start with a underscore or a letter, okay? So which might be a combination of this letter or an underscore. That's the first letter which it is going to begin. And after that, it can include the digits, letter, or the underscore as well. Okay. And when we are writing a function, it should be case sensitive. Like example, if I am writing a function as def login. Okay. So here, this is also a function. So if I don't want to pass any argument, so I can just use the keyword pass. Okay. Then I can just use the login. So if you can ask me, these two functions which I am writing, both are different. Okay, so I'm going to call now login. So here to differentiate, I'm going to add a print statement here as login, and here I can differentiate, I can write here the print statement as login. Okay, so now I'll try to call both the functions which I had created. Okay, so let me run this program now. If you can see, first whenever it is calling with a capital letter and then it is a small one. So these functions are case sensitive, and there are certain reserved keywords in the Python, so which we should not use that keywords as the functions when we are defining. Function name of the function, we should not use that particular keyword. Like example, if I'm creating a function as def, instead of writing a function, I'm just going to make it as a pass. So here you can see I'm getting an error. Okay, so it's not considering it as a function call. So now it is considering. Okay, and we can use the, as I told in the first statement, we can use the underscore. So I can just use hi underscore function. So this I can use it as a name of the function. So at the beginning, it's like if I am adding digits, so it is not going to accept it. Okay. So first always either I can add it as a underscore or the letter. So I can just even I can create it as a function as well. Okay. So these are some of the simple rules that you have to follow. And apart from that, okay, what else that we have to remember as the function when we are creating a function is, so we have to use the um, you can say, so points to remember when we are creating a function. So first thing, always we'll be using a diff keyword when we are creating a function. And apart from that, so we have to always use the function name which should be meaningful. And then, so we should have the, always we have to maintain the indentation. It is mandatory. And also either when we are calling the function or when we are defining the functions, we have to maintain the, we have to write the parenthesis. And one more thing is, function call is very important. So call function after creating it, right? And also we should avoid the duplicate function names. So we should not give two functions with the same name wherein we'll get the error. Okay, so these are the things that we have to remember when we are creating a function. Okay, now let us start understanding, if I am writing a function, along with the function we can even add the parameters also. Okay, so there is a small difference between the parameters and the arguments. Okay, let me write a simple program to explain that. I'm going to create a function called greet. Here I wanted to greet a person's, and that person's name should be passed as an argument. Means it should be dynamic value. Okay, for that reason I'm going to pass here parameter. So here name is a parameter in this greet function. So I'm going to write the statement here. So welcome, and then so if I wanted to combine the text that I wanted to print and then the argument that I'm passing, so I can use the comma separated here. I can pass the name. Now, so same greet function I have to call here. So how I can call greet? So here first I wanted to pass the argument as Swati. Okay. Now I wanted to greet Rahul. Then I wanted to here I I wanted to greet the next one John. So if you can see each time when I'm calling this greet, so here what I am passing is called as the argument. So what is that argument? It's the actual value that we are going to pass with the function. Here, whatever the value that we are sending when we are defining the function, what exactly the variable value that we are defining. So this is called as the parameter. Okay. So here parameter, if you wanted to tell it in a simple word, so we can call it as the placeholder. Okay, and when you say argument, it is the actual value. So if you can ask me, so here name is the parameter, and so Swati or Rahul, John, whichever we are just passing, these are called as an argument. Okay, so let me just separate it till now, whatever the code that we had written. So now I'll try to print this program. So let me run it from here only. So you can see it is printing welcome Swati, Rahul and John. So here one more thing, I can just remove this space to avoid the more space. Okay. Now, so this is a small difference that you have to understand between the parameter and the argument. So hope this is clear. Now, so with the particular functions when we are writing, apart from one, we can send multiple parameters also. Okay. Let me see this. Let me write a simple example for that. So here I'm going to write one simple function called employee. Okay, so as part of the employee I have to pass the employee name and their age. Okay, so here I can print. Okay, so name of the employee that I wanted to print, and here I can pass the value that I am fetching from the parameters, and then the age also I just wanted to pass, so I can just take it here. Okay, now these are the two values that I'm passing. So let me take in the same way along with the age, I wanted to pass their occupation also. Like I can say rather than designation, so their phone number. This is the like I wanted to store the employee details as their employee ID, name, age, and phone number. Okay, so here I can just even print the value. So I can just print the ID. So I have the name, age, and their phone number. So if you can see, I'm maintaining the proper um, indentations that I wanted to uh, print within the function for all the print statements. Now, so here I can just call this function by calling this function name, right? So I can just do this employee, and here, so let me see without if I'm not passing any arguments. Okay, I am just calling this employee. I'm not passing any argument. We'll see how exactly it's going to behave. So here I'll just click on the page app. So it means we have to compulsorily pass the arguments that I wanted to send it, right? So my execution will happen only if I'm going to pass the arguments that it required. Here you can see employee is missing four required arguments that which it is expecting argument values. Okay, so here I can just pass the ID as 101 and name as Swati and then the age as 25 and whatever the phone number it is coming here. Okay, now let me run this program. So if my function is defined or if with the function if you are passing the arguments, it's compulsory to pass that particular arguments when you are calling the function, right? So now there will be some times wherein we can to if I don't want to pass during the runtime, so at that time we can even set the default parameters. Okay, so we'll see simple example how exactly we can set this default parameters as well. Okay, let me write a simple program to understand this. I'll just write a program def login. So here, as part of the login, I'm going to pass the username, okay, and then password. So here, password, if a user is not sending during the runtime, I wanted to pass it as admin at the rate 12345. So here, this admin12345 is the default password which I'm going to pass. Okay, now I'm going to have the print statement as username and then the password that I wanted to print. Okay, let me call this function now. So here I'm going to call the function called login. Okay, see here this is a default one. So you know if even if you are not sending this particular value, that is fine, but username I need to send it. So here I'm going to send the username as Kavya. Okay, so let me run this program. So just let me separate this with simple statement. So here I can just run this. Now if you can see here, it is taking the username and password as admin whiteboard. So at the time, if I wanted to send explicitly any, if I wanted to change the password and if I wanted to set, so I can even send it. So I can just give it as the John as the username and password I wanted to change it as a John at the rate 12345. Okay, now it is going to accept the password as John 12345. So this is how we can manage the default parameter. Hope it is clear. Now let us see the return statement. So which is very important in Python. Okay. So we'll just take the simple example on the return statement. Uh, Let me write a simple example as I told. So define. I'll try to do the addition of the two values and I wanted to return that value. Okay. So here I'm going to pass the values as x and y. X, Y, and Z. So as I told, I wanted to do the addition. So there will be two ways that I can use it. Okay. So first one, I can do the print. Okay. And then sum of here whatever the value x, y, z that I'm going to get it. Then I can call this function as add and I can pass the values as 10, 10, and 10. Okay. So now if I'm trying to print this statement, it is going to print. Okay, so it's going to print the value as sum as 30. Okay, so same thing, instead of print I wanted to write the return statement. Okay, so here I can add a return x, y, and z. Okay, now when it is returning, okay, if you are calling this function, it is going to return that value. So when it is means it is throwing the output. Okay, at that time we need some variable to store this particular value. So here I can just give the variable as result and I can store this returned value over the results. So here whenever I wanted to print this value, I can try to print addition. Okay, is, and here I can just update it as the result. Okay, if you can see, now also I can try to print the value. So here I am getting sum as 30. We'll just see the difference when we are writing the result. So here addition is 30. Both are same. Then what is the why, where exactly we have to use the return? Why exactly we have to use the print? So it is recommended to use the print statement whenever we have some statements to print. But if I wanted to print certain outputs, if I wanted to use the return value in multiple areas, at that time it is recommended to use the return statement, because when you are using the print, it just displays the value. Okay, but if I am using the return statement, it sends the value which we had created back to the further use. Like here this results I can use it multiple times, whatever the value that it is returning. Okay, so in that way there is a slight difference to use the return and print statement. Okay, so hope this is clear. Next we'll move on to the keyword arguments. Okay, so when we wanted to pass certain values in the form of a key and value, so we can try to use this keyword arguments. So we'll just take a simple example. So I'll take the example of employee details only. So here I'll use the underscore details. So as part of the employee details, I wanted to pass name of the employee and then their designation. Okay, and then the salary. Okay, so here I just wanted to print this particular values which I am trying to have it. So I can just go with the print name. So here, as I told, I can just separate it and write down the name. So in the same way, I can just print the designation and then the salary, right? So here, when I am trying to call, okay, so here I just wanted to call this function, and so here as part of this particular function, I just wanted to pass this in the form of a keyword argument. So for that reason, I can just pass it as a name is equal to John, and so here designation I can pass it as so manager, and then I can pass the salary as 50,000. Okay, so now when I'm calling this function, it's going to print the value that it is going to take it. Okay, so let me just try to see by printing this value. Okay, so let me run this program. It is throwing some error. Okay, so I have passed the variable differently. Okay, now I'm going to run this. Now you can see we are getting the output, right? So it's a simple example. So if we can see quickly, if we have to summarize, so we discussed today about the functions. So why we have to use the function, how to define the simple function for the code repeatability, and what are the rules that we have to follow when we are defining the functions. And then we discussed about the function with multiple parameters and what's the difference between the parameters versus the arguments. Then we discussed about the function returning value, and then the default parameters, how exactly we can pass, then the keyword arguments. Okay, so based on this, so here I had provided a simple assignments to work on. So here you have to create a function called calculate hyphen total. So here you have to pass the uh, input as price and the quantity, and here you have to define the statement and do the function call. Out of that, we should get the output as price is 100 quantity is 5 and total should be 500. This is what the output that I am expecting when as part of the this particular function call. Okay, this is the assignment. Okay, you try to complete it. So I'll be connecting via the next session. Thank you everyone.